Hi everyone, so today I'm going to give you a different demonstration. It's a little bit inspired by what I did last week with the glass plates. So I'm going to be using the small square glass plate this time, and I've chosen to do that as I'm just downsizing my project a little bit and want to show you a little bit more technique based of what I'm going to be doing. So let's have a look, see if anyone's joining. And what I'm going to be doing is using my rice papers. I'm going to be fussy cutting these and creating my own backgrounds with rice papers as well. So my first step to start with is fussy cutting. Now, with the rice papers, you sometimes find that the designs on here can be really intricate and ornate, and sometimes it can put you off a little bit actually cutting them out because you don't want to spoil them, but it's so easy to do. So as you're going in with your rice paper, what you want to do, always make sure you're doing, is holding your scissors straight and going in with your paper and turning your paper, because that is the real technique. And I'm not even following the lines too strictly as I'm cutting, because I'm creating my own edges with this. As you can see, on the other side of my scissors there, I still have some petal left over, and all on this side, I'm just creating my own lines, and that way it's created a lovely edge that doesn't matter whether there's any design left on there, because it's your little design that you've made. So what my next step is going to be is I'm going to use my fabric decoupage glue. Let's have a look. See if we've got anyone on here. Have we got anyone coming on? No, sorry, bit of a technical issue. Right, we'll carry on for a second and we'll go back to that. So I'm going to take a little bit of my decoupage glue out onto my glass plate, and usually I always pop it onto my rice paper. And the reason I'm doing that is it's quite a delicate design, so I don't want to drag it about too much or saturate any area. And the reason why I'm using the decoupage glue is it goes onto all your surfaces. So it will go onto glass, it will go onto stone, plastic and fabric, all those surfaces, and then also it's wipeable and washable. So if you put it onto fabric, you want to heat set it from behind with an iron, or if you want to put it onto glass, you want to then coat it on the back with an acrylic or something to seal it in. But it is a brilliant product to use. It's so versatile and goes on all of my projects, so it really is brilliant. So I'm just going to take a flat brush for this. I'm going to go in, put in a nice coat. I'll move this out of the way so you can see it. A nice even coat onto the back of the rice paper. So I'm just making sure to spread it all nice and even. Have a look. And going all over, and I will be drying it afterwards. So if you've got a bit too much on there, any lumpy bits, don't worry about that, because we can smooth it out afterwards. Here we are. So I've covered all of that. Then I'm just going to take my glass plate, and as this is a branch of blossom, I sort of want it to flow across the glass. And do you know what I've just done? I've just realised I've actually glued the wrong side. So I'm supposed to glue the front of the design so I can stick it on the glass, and I can still do that, so I'm going to show you that anyway. So we're going to turn the actual flower over. I'm going to get some more glue out, and that just shows that it doesn't matter if it goes wrong, because you can still work with it. It's not going to matter at all, and we're going to dry it anyway, so if anything, it's already sealed the back of it for us. So I'm going to go over with my glue again. So you're getting quite a big lesson on how to use glue. So we go in all the way over here on the front, and you can see now this rice paper is going to be quite saturated with glue, and it will still stand up to be moved. So I'll still be able to move it around on my project. It's not going to fall apart, so it's still going to give us the effect that we want. So now that I've glued the correct side, I'm just going to take it off my glass mat nicely there, and you can see why I did the wrong side, because now it will lay nicely over my glass. So I'm just going to spread it out a little bit. I think we've got a little petal. Where's that one under there? Like that. And just smooth it out nicely. I'm using my fingers for this, and then I will go over it with the brush, but I just want to delicately place this on so I know that all of the surface is down. And then I'm going to take whatever's left of my glue and start to go over the surface. I don't need to cover all of the glass, just the areas with the rice paper. So I've got Elizabeth in the room with me today, as she's going to be helping me read some comments off. So I don't know if we've got any coming through already.
So I just wanted to know, is that the rice paper that we used for the Love Peace Happiness collection?
It is the rice paper. So I think this was around about January time we used this, and I absolutely love this collection. Me and Elizabeth worked on a project together, which has been one of my all-time favourites so far, where we made a really nice big screen. It was beautiful, and I absolutely loved it, and we used this rice paper on there as well. And I'm surprised I actually have some left over, because we used that much of it, it was a really nice project to work with. So I've popped all that on there, it's all sealed nicely. I'm just going to give it a quick blast with the hairdryer. So I've sped up the process of that drying. It usually takes about 15-20 minutes to dry anyway. But I'm going to pop this to one side as the next thing I'm doing it can work on just drying out and it'll cool down a little bit. So what I want to do now is actually make my own rice paper design. So I'm going to make my own background. We've got some lovely rice papers, but sometimes you might want to create your own design, something that will work really well with maybe your colour scheme of your room or a product you're already working on. So I've chosen a few of the Cadence products for this as they will work really well with this. You could use acrylics, you could use metallics, but I wanted to get a nice bleeding pattern and a bit of ombre in there. So I'm going to take this, which is actually, it used to be the Cadence dark brown and it is now my water spray. So I've used it that much that I've now decided to turn it into a little tool within my kit. So I'm going to give it a quick spritz with the water, and all that's doing is giving me a nice base. It's a bit damp so the paints will bleed in a little better. Then I'm going to take the light green. This is not the mixed media shimmer, this is just the mixed media ink, this one. So these will give you a really nice strong pigment, but they've not got the pearlescent as I want it to be a matte finish because we're going on to glass, and that will give us the shine. So all around with the green. Have we had any more questions come through, Elizabeth?
We haven't, but we've got quite a few people saying hello. So we've got Libby, we've got Anna.
Hi Libby, happy birthday Libby. Hi Anna.
We've got Kasha, Nikki, Helen.
Hi Nikki, hi Kasha.
Lauren.
Oh, everyone's watching. Hi Lauren.
You just had a question come through saying, is it best to let it dry naturally or use the hairdryer?
So with the decoupage glue, it depends on what surface you're working on. So I'm working on glass, so I like to dry it with the hairdryer as it will just speed it up purely for the purpose of the video. But if I'm working on fabric, what I would usually do is let it dry on the fabric and then turn it over and heat set it with an iron. That way it'll be washable. So with all of your rice paper designs with your glue, it will be able to last on your fabric even if you do put it on about a 30-degree wash in the washing machine. So that's the pure advantage of that. But you can dry in whichever way you want. You could use a heat gun for it as well. We just want to make sure you're keeping a good distance with it because you don't want to actually scorch it. We just want to dry the surface.
We've just had another question as well saying, how do you tear the rice paper?
So, the rice papers, there's quite a few ways you can do this, and my preferred way of doing it, which I think gives the nicest effect, and as you can see I've just put some of the brown on there to bleed in. The best way to do that is using a brush with just some water going straight over the edge, and in fact I'll show you a little bit of that now. Oops, daisy. So I've got my brush here, I'm just going to take it in water. It is best to use a nice fine brush, but I've got this and it'll work fine. So on the top here you can see I'm just saturating that edge there with water, and if I had a design here and I wanted to not cut it but give it a nice edge, I would then just tear it lightly like this, as you can see, and it's coming away but it's leaving me with a really nice feathered edge. And this is really good for blending, so if you're putting it on a project that you want to blend paints into, other types of media, your dyes and things like that, it will give a nice wash finish. So I've put my inks on there and I've got a bit of a nice background going on. I quite like that, so I'm going to give it a quick blast with the hairdryer. There we are, so it dries really quickly. Your rice paper is only very thin, so it's not going to hold a great deal amount of moisture. It'll dry up nice and quick. I'm just going to have a little drink, I do apologise.
We just had Nikki ask if you can print onto your own rice paper to get your own designs on there.
Yes, so with the USB that we had out, we had the Vintage Rose USB out not too long ago, and you can print on all your own designs onto your rice paper, whether it would be a rice paper design that you've purchased on a USB or your own images that you want to. You can print from an inkjet or you can print from a laser printer. It will all go onto your rice papers. The best way to do that when you're printing from home is your rice paper. If you've got some stencil spray, the Cadence spray, if you spray onto the rough surface of the rice paper, there's a slightly rougher surface and a smoother side. You spray on that with your stencil spray and put it on just some copier paper and it will run through your printer much better. And that way it won't chew your printer or anything like that. It'll go through perfectly. So I hope that's answered that for you. So I'm going to take a little bit of the white hybrid acrylic and I'm going to go over with a flat brush again, and I'm going to take a little bit of the excess of the paint off there. That's perfect. And what I want to do is these browns that have come through, I just want to mute them down a little bit. So I'm just dry brushing straight over And what that's doing as well is the rice paper has got a nice texture to it, and it's picking up all of that texture. And there's no particular way of doing it, I'm just running straight over it, up and down, just to give a nice sort of rustic edge. And you could do this with your acrylics, and you could do it with your metallics, your inks, you could do all sorts. Create some really nice backgrounds with those. So I'm quite happy with that. It's what I wanted. So I've got one here that is nice and dry. Bear with me a second. So what we're going to do now is we're going to stamp onto this. Now, I was thinking about what stamps to use, and I really like a texture stamp. So ones with writing, a little bit of an image in there, and I think it just gives a bit of a nondescript background, so it's not the main focus of the piece. So in my loading font here, I've got this stamp. This is a lovely one, this. I think it's from my Mixed Media Textures collection. And it's got all that lovely detail in there. We've got postage stamps, we've got a little butterfly, loads of writing, loads of nice things. So what I'm going to do is turn it the right way around, because that might help, and get my Rare Earth ink. I'm using the Pitch Black dye ink pad for this one. The reason why I'm using that is it's going onto rice paper, so it will soak into there, give us a nice finish. And it will dry quite quickly as well. So I'm going to load up my stamp. Here we are. And then before I do that, I'm just going to take a little bit of this just to get rid of my excess glue and paint there before I make a mess of my stamp, because I don't want to do that. Here we are. And then I'm going to take my rice paper, and I quite like this section here that's got these big blobs on it, so I'm going to take that, I'll pop it that way so you can see it. I'm going to go straight down onto it like that. I'm going to stand up for this bit because I want to put a bit of pressure on it. Here we are.
We've just had a question come in from Nikki.
Yep.
Any advice on how I can save my rice paper if I accidentally tear it in places I didn't want to rip it?
So always save your scraps, always save leftovers. So if you've torn a bit off and you might have torn into the wrong bit and you've still got it anyway, save it, because it always makes really nice backgrounds. You never want to throw any away. But if you've torn a bit and you want to still piece it back together, because it tears with that feathered edge, it will blend in nicely. So if you put your glue on there, your gesso, it will all blend really nicely together. So you never need to worry about ruining your rice papers, because it's all part of it really, and it's sort of just making it wherever you want it to be. So I would never worry too much about ruining those. So I'm going to give this another quick blast with the hairdryer just on the edges, because I want to take these bits of petals off here. Good anyway. I may put something on here because everything's going to blow away in a second. Right, so I'm just going to take a bit of sandpaper, and this is quite a fine sandpaper. You could use a rough one. It's fairly smooth actually for sandpaper, but it'll be nice because I don't want to scratch my glass or anything like that. I also want to do is take the rice paper off, and it only needs a smooth one for that. And rub it all just down the edges, and then they just come away so nicely, and you've got such a crisp edge there. And then these ones here comes away really nicely, and then just on that edge too. And then this is the bit, and I've not tried this before actually with the making my own backgrounds onto glass, so I hope it turns out nice because I really like it so far, so fingers crossed it will have a nice outcome. And I'm going to take some of my decoupage glue onto my glass mat again. I ended up using it all last time, so I feel pretty confident I will be doing the same. So I'm going to put it actually this time onto the glass. So you can actually put it onto the rice paper, or you could put it onto the surface you're working on. It's entirely up to you. I've chosen to do that though, because I have just stamped that, and it does take a couple of minutes to dry, but I don't want to spread any ink just in case it hasn't. Here we are. That's all covered nicely. And also I know that I'm not going to decoupage the wrong side this time, because it's already on the glass. So I'm going to take my stamped side and just lay it straight over the rice paper. Let me check that I've got that in the right place. Yep. And I'm going to go over the back of that with my leftover decoupage glue again. And because I'm putting this on the back of the stamp, I'm not worried about the ink bleeding because I know it's all set in place. And notice as well also the acrylic side that I did is the same as the stamped side. so all that texture is going to really come through on that glass. There we are. I'm going to give it a quick blast with the hairdryer just to set it up. Any more questions? And then what I'm going to do again is go in with my sandpaper all around the edges. I'm going to take that off. And it might be quite nice actually, if I press into the glass a bit more, it'll actually take it away. Not necessarily right up to the edge, but a little bit further away, and then I'll get a little bit of the glass coming through. So it is nice to have nice crisp edges to things, but sometimes if it's a little bit faded out, it's nice to try it because you don't really know how it's going to turn out. You might prefer it. Working on glass is something that I'm still getting very used to. It's something that's still quite new to me, but so far I have really enjoyed it. We've got some really nice bottles coming up as well in some future shows, so they will be really nice to watch out for. As you can see, all that rice paper is just coming away.
We've just had a question from Helen saying, what sandpaper should I use not to scratch the glass, but we usually use the sand block as well, don't we, to do stuff like that?
Definitely, yeah. So Elizabeth actually raised a good point as well, and thank you for your question, Helen. So the best thing to use, like I say, is a smooth one because you don't want to scratch the glass, but also a sand block's really good. So a sponge block that's got a sanded surface all the way around, it's good for rounded edges and things like that because you just know it's going to get all of that into all of the parts that you've glued. But don't worry too much. If you feel like you are scratching it, just take a bit of the pressure off and you should be fine. But it is wise to always use a slightly less coarse one. So as you can see there, my rice paper has come through with my stamp, my other bit of rice paper, and the one thing to finish this off, which is really important to do, because I want this to be wipeable, is then just go in with my hybrid acrylic. So I'm going to take some of the white again there, and the reason why I'm using white and no other colour is because I want the colours to pop through it. So if I had a black background, it will really dull all of this down, but if I put white through it, as you can see instantly, it gives me a nice background to it, and it really just highlights all of those colours that I've used. So I'll go back in with my white brush.
Nikki's just asked as well if we can do a crafting session with me and you.
Definitely, I think we should do, because we work so well together and some of the stuff we've worked on is so amazing.
Yeah.
Up at the iHub, we've done so many projects together we've sort of collaborated on. So I think that's definitely something that we need to do in the future. We sort of bounce off each other quite a lot, I think.
Libby's just asked a question. She said, is it easier to patch up if you accidentally scratch too much off in certain areas of the glass?
Yes, it is. So that's a really good question. Thank you, Libby. So when you're with your rice paper, if you do scratch some away, the reason why I created this background is that it all blends so nicely. So I've got other areas in here which I could tear away and add to another element. So it would all piece together really nicely and it would blend. So you can easily do that. There's no reason why not. So I'm going to take my hairdryer and give it a quick blast.
So Cash has just asked as well, what ink do you use? So yeah, mixed media sprays and
Yeah.
sprays.
So you could use your shimmer sprays if you wanted to, you could use your mixed media ink, or you could use your ink pads as well. You could use these if you wanted to, you could block those on, or you could get a brush and rub those in. But I like these so much because if you wet the surface, then add these, they bleed in really nicely and they all blend together. So when we've got these on the show in the collections, you'll find that the colours that are picked for that show will all bleed into one another and give a really nice background. So that's the reason why I choose these, but I will do some videos on using different types and different colours of the Cadence range of the inks, just so you can see the outcomes. But that there is the finished product. So I'm actually really happy with that. I didn't think it would turn out, and I quite like all the stamping that's come through on the petals as well. So I'm quite happy with that. It's something different from what I've made before. But yeah, thank you ever so much for watching. I'll be doing some more videos with you in the coming weeks, so keep lookout for those. Thank you.